Shove it, man!
Shove it, squad. Today is one of those days where I just go off on my own and do something completely selfish and make a video I've been wanting to do for a while. So if this video sucks, you can all smack me one. For fans of my NWA TNA series, it's clear by now that there is one man that stands out more than any other in the early days of TNA. And that man is Sonny, "Don't Look at My Ass Siaki." In today's video I'll cover his whole career and how he earned that nickname and cover the many tragedies of this man's career. Now I don't normally do rise and fall type videos, but I think this one is suitable. So here is the rise and fall of Sonny, "Don't Look at My Ass Siaki." To start with, Sonny is a man that I've often described as one of the biggest missed opportunities in TNA history, but we'll start today's video before his time in TNA. First of all, to get it all out there, Siaki was born in Samoa, but he's not in any way related to the famous wrestling family. His family moved to the US when he was young and he went on to pursue a career in American football. Unfortunately, he suffered a stinger, and I ain't talking Steve Borden, and this meant he was unable to continue chasing that dream. Luckily for him, he attended the same university as someone who already had his foot in the door of the wrestling business. Lodi was that man, and he got Siaki a tryout for the WCW Power Plant in 1999.
I love you,
He made it all the way through that grueling process and was handed a developmental deal. He didn't do anything of note in WCW, he just wrestled fellow Power Plant graduates on the WCWC shows. He was in tremendous shape at this time due to the grueling training from the Power Plant. I'd love to have that schedule and just see what it's like. The weird thing was that he seemed to be using the Unpredator as his finisher at the time. Sonny didn't stick with WCW to the bitter end of the company, he left after around 6 months because he was unhappy there. He was picked up by Turnbuckle Wrestling, which was run by the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, where he received further training. He would also meet his future valet Desire here. This is a lady he'd go on to have a kid with. It was also around this time he wrestled a couple of dart matches for the WWE. Sonny has said he was a bit naive and thought that the Fed would definitely be his next step, but it wasn't. Interestingly, he faced his fellow Flying Elvis Jorge Estrada, and in the other match it was Shawn Michaels' cousin Michael Shane. TNA opened up shortly after and Siaki was picked up by them instead. He appeared on the first ever TNA show in the first ever match as one of the Flying Elvises. This was 3 guys dressed up doing Elvis impressions. They took on AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn and Low-Ki in the opener, so an impressive way to start. Unfortunately, Siaki quickly started to draw criticism from the fellow wrestlers backstage in TNA. They found him to be cocky and disrespectful. In fact, Jerry Jarrett wanted to fire him after the first show, but Jeff Jarrett and Russo vouched for him. Sonny didn't seem to be enjoying being a Flying Elvis and almost straight away he thought he was better than his partners Jorge and Jimmy Yang. Although this is quite an infamous gimmick, it didn't actually last for more than a couple of months. Siaki's partners couldn't stand him and he felt the same way about them. Plus, Jimmy Yang kept wrestling abroad and missing the TNA shows, so the team was doomed. Siaki hated the gimmick and burnt the outfit on TV. Sometime around here in 2003, Siaki was competing over in Finland in a tag match with beyond boring Mike Sanders against Skipper and Adam Funk. During the match, Siaki botched a split-legged moonsault with his knee smashing Funk in the face like a brick. Apparently this injury looked truly horrific and Funk is still deaf in one ear from it. Presumably Siaki didn't like the Miss TNA gimmick. I don't think any footage actually exists, but they faced each other a few times in WCW, so that's what you're seeing here. Calm down, don't get too excited or I'll have to smack you one. The two are still friends to this day as Funk understands that accidents happen and no malice was meant by Siaki. Sonny Don't Look at My Ass Siaki was now fully heel and his appearance quickly drew comparisons to The Rock, one of the biggest wrestlers at the time. Siaki took this to heart and for the first year of his career he tried to cut his promos in the way The Rock does. This resulted in him talking in third person, saying his own name 20 times per promo.
Now that's Sonny Siaki, but let Sonny Siaki tell you like Sonny Siaki tells all Sonny Siaki fans out in pay-per-view land. Sonny Siaki has left the interview. Sonny Siaki will turn around when Sonny Siaki's ready. You want Sonny Siaki's comments?
Does Sonny Siaki need a Q-tip?
Don't get smart with Sonny Siaki, Goldilocks. Don't be a wise ass with Sonny Siaki, or else you'll never have your way with Sonny Siaki again. But he's no Sonny Siaki. Sonny Siaki is bigger than the Super Bowl. Sonny Siaki is bigger than life itself. Sonny Siaki has arrived. Sonny Siaki knows it, you know it, and the people out in pay-per-view land know it.
Sonny Siaki has left the interview.
It didn't work and it just sounded a bit comical. Despite what Russo says, Sonny has said in interviews that Russo asked him to act like The Rock. I asked Russo about this when I interviewed him.
Having obviously worked with The Rock before I worked with Sonny, he reminded me a lot of The Rock. Of course, bro, there's only one Rock, but he reminded me a lot like him. But I thought Sonny had the potential to really, really, really make it big in the business. I really, really did.
Is it true you actually asked him to act like The Rock? Because that's been rumored online. I just wondered.
That's not true. I would never do that, bro. There's only one Rock. You're not. Yeah. If I would have asked Sonny Siaki to act like The Rock, he would have been dead in the water, bro.
When I first, my first year in the business, I was like, I kind of like try to imitate him. I kind of, found myself, trying to talk like him or be like him. Russo, he wanted me to be more like him, which is, he was the writer at the time.
So, which one of them is lying? You decide. After a bit of time, Sonny didn't want to do it anymore because he was tired of the comparisons. He wanted to be himself. He also formed a bit of rivalry with the backstage interviewer Goldilocks, where they would constantly bicker. One week he would be hitting on her, and the next week he'd be insulting her.
People often ask me, why do I call him Sonny? Don't look at my ass, Siaki.
Well, there's actually two reasons for that. So for those of you who didn't get it, here comes reason one. For a couple of weeks, Siaki cut promos telling Goldilocks not to look at his ass. He repeated this so many times that it just kind of stuck in my head as a nickname for him. Stay tuned for reason two.
I know you were checking out Sonny Siaki's ass. Don't ever check out Sonny Siaki's ass without Sonny Siaki's permission again.
After eventually winning the feud with the Flying Elvises, Siaki flirted around in the X Division, winning matches by cheating. Things picked up for Sonny at the end of the year as he became the X Division champion, beating Jerry Lynn. Some people dump all over Siaki's X Division title reign as he didn't have the wrestling style of his predecessors. He could fly a bit, but it certainly wasn't his forte. He also had help winning most of his matches. That help came from Vince Russo's Sports Entertainment Extreme faction. Russo soon made him an offer that if he joined the group, he'd give him a lady called Desire. She would reportedly do anything Siaki wanted, and this proved too much for him to resist, so he joined Russo. Now this faction sucked. I made a whole video on it. There were like 30 people in the group, and nearly all of them were terrible or completely past it. In a way, this made Siaki stand out even more, as he was the only member of the group with any potential. Russo disappeared from the group after a couple of months, but before leaving he gave Sonny his nickname, the Ace in the Hole. More like the hole in the ass. Russo leaving left the group without a leader. As Sonny was one of the more talkative members of the team, he tried to become the leader, but he was met with resistance. For some reason, TNA made the decision to settle on Disco Inferno as the leader of the group, despite Sonny being the one with all the upside. And the fall was hard from this one. He went from feuding with Jerry Lynn for the X Division title to battling the king of the cab driver slam, David Young. For those of you who don't know this man, he was TNA's resident jobber for the first few years of their existence. They regularly bragged about his losing streak on telly. Oh, by the way, here's the second reason he's known as Don't Look at My Ass Siaki. During a match with said cab driver, Siaki's belt snapped off his trousers and they were too loose. If that wasn't embarrassing enough for Siaki, he was wearing a black thong. There was no hiding it, and Siaki had to spend the whole match shifting between embarrassment and just not giving a fuck. This was not a quick thong slip, he had to wrestle like this for several minutes. Sonny, if you see this video, I'm sorry to remind you about this one. But yeah, I'll never be able to understand the decision to push Disco Inferno into the main event scene instead of Sonny. He started being managed by Stephanie Trinity as Desire broke her back. Trinity seemed to manage just about everyone in the early days of TNA. He got his second push in the company around this time as he feuded with the newly debuted D'Lo Brown. They had a series of matches with Siaki actually coming off pretty well, winning 2 matches. This might not sound like much, but D'Lo was pushed as a potential TNA World Champion. For his second win, they strangely had a casket match, and it was during this match that Umaga would debut at TNA. Because they were both Samoan, I guess TNA thought they'd just shove them together, although they weren't actually related. The team got a decent push, beating America's Most Wanted, who are normally TNA's top tag team. The Samoan team had some nice double team power moves and were genuinely pretty fun to watch. Unfortunately for Sonny, this tag team would get derailed as Umaga only ended up staying with the company for 2 months. During their time as a team, they competed against Shark Boy and Crash Holly, who little did they know at the time was having his final television match before his sad passing. The end of this team meant Sonny was off TV for 3 months. TNA just didn't know what to do with him now. The next 6 months sure sucked ass for Siaki. He was put in a makeshift tag team with Simon Diamond. Nobody could possibly care about these guys. It wasn't helped by the fact that they were feuding with Disco Inferno and Johnny Swinger. They were feuding because the New Yorkers were making fun of their heritage. It was just a pointless joke feud. Desire also returned from her broken back and was put back with Siaki. Things then somehow got even worse for the directionless Siaki. His contract was won in a match by Goldilocks, who was collecting wrestlers' contracts. She didn't exactly treat him well. She forced him to give a foot rub, and then she barked at him, forcing him to get down on his hands and knees to rub them more. Desire tried to save Siaki from Goldilocks by offering to buy him back. The way they were speaking about buying a human was disturbing. Goldilocks says she couldn't imagine why anyone would want Siaki because he's a complete idiot. This didn't seem to be helping to make Siaki into a star that he should be. Siaki was eventually saved by Eric Watts in a match with his contract on the line. Sonny Siaki was saved by Eric Watts. 2004 was also a complete stinker for him. No high-profile feuds and embarrassing storylines associated with jobbers. He did form a short-lived random pairing team, this time with Johnny B. Bad. He teamed with that guy for his final ever TV match, so yay I guess. Siaki just looked uncomfortable the whole time. I don't think he wanted to team with him. I think his in-ring work was above average. He wasn't a typical X Division wrestler as I mentioned earlier, but he certainly had a good array of moves. Considering he was Samoan, he sure didn't do the Samoan drop very often, but I would have been completely okay with that. Some people call Sonny Siaki a jobber and didn't see his potential, and you would be right if you tuned in at this point. I hate being a Sonny Siaki fan, it makes me angry.
What happened next made me even angrier. A wild slapnuts appeared.
Jeff Jarrett.
What might surprise some of you is that during Siaki's 3-year stay with TNA, he did not have a single match involving Jeff Jarrett. Not a multi-man, not a cage, not a battle royal. He was not deemed good enough to do the JOB to the founder. In fact, the only time he got to interact with Jarrett was when he got beaten up by Slappy and chucked in the back of a hearse. Don't make me curse.
Siaki was probably mad too, but if he knew what was coming up, he wouldn't want to be on pay-per-view ever again. Siaki was shoved in yet another pointless team. This time he was shoved with Puerto Rican muscle guy Apollo. I guess because they were both from islands outside of the US mainland, so all similar people must be together. He was another one that some people considered a missed opportunity, but I've seen mixed opinions on him. Tragedy struck at Lockdown 2005. In a completely pointless throwaway match, Siaki and Apollo took on Lance Hoyt and Chris Candido. During the match, Siaki hit Candido with a dropkick, which left Candido with a broken leg. Candido was operated on and also boarded a plane during this time, but died from pneumonia 4 days after this match. Now, even to this day, I've read some vile comments people have written about Siaki. People need to be mature about this. Candido knew the risks of being a wrestler and botches happen in matches. Look at Alan Funk from earlier. Candido was in hospital and he was operated on by them. So if you have anyone to blame, blame them. Not Sonny Siaki, because even to this day I'm sure Siaki feels guilt over this. I hope one day he can find peace with it. Following all of that, Sonny wasn't officially punished, although looking at his match rundown, he was booked less and less on TNA TV. He would only wrestle 13 more TV matches for the company, the majority of this coming in a team with Apollo. The team was never given a name, never given a chance to talk, and after 3 years Siaki still had the exact same theme music. And if you want further proof that TNA couldn't be bothered to try with him, just look at his Titantron. They haven't even spelt his name right, for God's sake. He hit rock bottom on his second to last ever TV match as he was pinned by David Young after he hit the cab driver slam. He had now come full circle. This was a man that Siaki used to bully, for God's sake.
Of course, everybody knows Ace in the Hole, Sonny Siaki. David, I know the last few weeks, you and I haven't been getting along. And I know it's because I'm the guy with the good looks and the best body, and you're kind of fat and ugly. Fatty.
Take a look at these two men. Which one of them do you think should be getting the push? He looks like a taxi driver's foreskin, for God's sake. His final TNA match came in November 2005. At least they fixed the spelling of his name on the Titantron. His final match was a tag match loss against AMW. So the team with Apollo went nowhere, and nor did Siaki. This wasn't even a case of them briefly teaming, it went on for 8 months. They won 3 matches in that time. Sonny's contract expired and he declined the offer to re-sign. Can you really blame him? A month later he signed a developmental deal with the WWE and he was shipped off to Deep South Wrestling. Presumably he had taken so many losses at this point in his career he needed some more training. Sonny said Dusty Rhodes put in a good word for him, but apparently not good enough. Things didn't change much for Siaki as he was shoved in a new tag team with fellow island wrestler Eric Perez, who was also from Puerto Rico. You may know him as Eric Escobar. At this point, Sonny must have felt his career was truly doomed. This went on for 6 months. WWE eventually realised that they weren't actually from the same island. Maybe that's why the team wasn't working as well as they'd hoped. So they remedied that, creating the Samoan Fight Club, teaming Siaki up with Manu, that one guy who got kicked out of Randy Orton's legacy. Yeah, I don't remember doing anything else either. He was also from the famous Samoan wrestling clan, so that's 2 of them Siaki has teamed up with now. He actually started working on some SmackDown house shows against Stevie Richards and Tommy Dreamer, but then he got injured, and that's as far as he ever got. His big shot, and he got injured. In September 2007, Sonny's brother was diagnosed with kidney failure, and he was dying. All of them were tested, but none of them were a kidney match, except for one person, who was of course Sonny Siaki. He made the decision immediately that he would donate his kidney to save his brother's life. As Sonny now only had one kidney, the doctors would not clear him to wrestle, so he retired in 2008, ending his career. When he was interviewed in 2011, he was not ruling out getting back in the ring because it is possible to still be a wrestler with one kidney, it's just not advisable. So in my opinion, we sort of end with a rise, because what he did for his brother was truly admirable. He started in the wrestling business as a young cocky kid who at the time would probably have taken any steps to make it big. But then he ended his career on a positive note, saving his brother's life. I'd certainly call that a rise. Yeah, the Hawk's happy with that one. So a real tale of missed opportunity in my eyes. He truly was one of the shining lights in the early days of TNA. But as more and more big name talents hit the roster, he became unimportant to them. It felt like there were at least 5 wrestlers at any time TNA would be claiming to be the next big thing. So no time to focus on Sonny Siaki. Nowadays, Siaki is not involved in the wrestling business at all. Last I heard, he was working for UPS, who are probably paying him more than TNA ever did. I've tried to interview Siaki on multiple occasions, but unfortunately he's not overly keen. He wants to move on and forget his time in the wrestling business. I understand that. His time in wrestling may fill in with some negative emotions. He dealt with backstage politics, injuries, deaths, and trying to live up to the future star tag he was given at the start. But I think he should be proud of what he managed to achieve. He was on the books of 3 major wrestling promotions, which is most likely more than any of us will ever achieve in the wrestling business. Siaki was one of the few standouts in the early days of TNA. And maybe if there weren't so many old bastards in charge, he may have followed a more similar path to AJ Styles. So that's his rise and fall and rise again, but more importantly, you now all know how he earned the nickname Don't Look at My Ass, and if you don't agree with that, I'll smoke you like grass.